Hello there. I think I'm on camera live. Let me just adjust that. Yeah. I was asked the other day a question that really got me thinking, and it was about my depression or about depression in general. Um, as anyone who follows my story online will know, I'm quite an open book. I tell people about what's happened to me in life, and I suffered a breakdown and was ill for a long time without knowing I was ill, and the residue of that has been bouts of depression that have somewhat eased off. I'm lucky that I'm one of the people that are not in a perpetual state of depression. The results of everything that's happened has been that it's more of a curve. So I get a curve that gets me quite high, where I can't stop. I'm full of adrenaline, and I've just got to do everything and finish everything off, and I'll work for the night and be crazy. Or I sink and I go very low, and my emotions are very bare and raw. But it made me realize that everybody is so different. We can't. There's not a book to write down and say this is what you do when you have depression, or this is how you. And as a therapist, I've had to deal with lots and lots of different things, mostly anxiety problems and things like that, and other sort of mental issues that come under the banner of depression. But you can't. Self-analysis doesn't work, so you can't do it with yourself. But you can be great at looking after other people, which is where I found myself to be. But but there isn't a book you can write that just covers everything and says do this, do that, do that, and everything will be okay. So how do you describe your depression? Well, I'm I feel that mine. And let's just see if other people can relate to it, because this will be the interesting thing. Mine, I feel like, is kind of with me all the time, in the sense that it's a shadow that walks with me, but I don't have any problem with that. I almost sometimes look at it in a positive way and see it as my creative side, because when it shows its face a little bit, I uh, I feel more creative. I'm not. I don't. I can't say I don't get scared of it, because sometimes I wonder or worry that perhaps it might one day take me over a little bit. But it hasn't so far, and I've kind of got into a system now where it starts to sort of build up in me, and it's when it's really bad, it's like a massive, massive weight across your head. It feels like my brain's being squeezed, and there is some despair there. You can feel like there's no solution, and what could you possibly do that could make this go away, could make it feel right. You don't actually know how you feel when you're in it really properly. It's a numbness. It's a feeling of just utter no reasoning. There's just no point to anything. And that's the dangerous bit, that there is no point for me. And I know we don't all feel exactly the same. I often, in my head, I describe it, and I may have said this before, but in my head, I describe it as looking down a long, winding path that goes through a very dark forest each side of it. The dark forest represents the place where you don't want to be, and that's the utter despair of depression. And the path is okay if you keep on it, because the path is clear and you can walk through it. And it's lit up, so that exposes the darkness even more. I tend to do my best work in a creative fashion if I walk half on the path and half off. So I'm just there on the edge, and that is where I work best. And it's kind of weird, really, because I get frightened that I might just step off into the darkness at times and get lost in a world that I don't understand. And it's that scary bit, but that scary bit makes me more creative, and I don't want to lose that side of it. I actually want to keep. So it's very, very strange, really, and I do think that we all feel differently about that situation, and we blanket things. We use the term depression and blanket it. People who haven't had depression have just had things that have gone wrong in their life, and lost their job, or they've broken up with a partner, or or they don't feel well, or get basically generally pissed off with life. That's natural, and although that can give you sort of like depressive thoughts, you feel down. That's not depression. Depression comes on a black cloud when there's a beautiful sunny sky everywhere. And it's very difficult to describe it to somebody who doesn't suffer some form of depression. But it quite clearly, after this person asking me this question, quite clearly was different from what they had. And it makes me wonder how many different forms, of depression, or how people would describe their depression in different ways. And I'm interested to know more about other people's feelings of that. Now, you'd think I'd know this already, but I don't really. I think, what other terminology can be used in it under this blanket of what we call depression? It's mixed feelings, really. There's lots of other things. Anxiety has crept more into mine. I never ever had anxiety before. There's a little bit more of that now, but it's a payoff for the darkness of the depression not being quite so dark. So that's eased off a little bit. And I also think I am lucky for being one of the people that don't have it all the time. So the majority of my life I spend joyfully happy. So, I can't complain too much. But there is always that worry that it might take over one day because you hear such awful things happening out there. Interesting to think that we all see things and perceive things slightly differently. And, of course, it makes sense. So why not how we feel things in our head be a little bit different from each other as well? I'd like to know more about, perhaps if you suffer in any way. You can either PM me, or you can... I'm not writing a book on the thing, by the way. I'm not trying to suck some stuff out of your mind. It's just I'm interested, so you can PM me and talk to me privately if you want, or you can read something below the video. I think it would be interesting for anybody else as well.